Hello and welcome. I don't know how to tell you this, but I love you. And thanks for joining us today with our special guest, Casey, the only person I know more addicted to disappointment than your typical Vikings fan. We have a couple topics today we want Casey's insight on, so let's get started. But before that, Casey, would you like to say hi to the folks?
No.
Okay, well, you're not going to say hi. Josh, what about you?
Hi guys, welcome. Casey's a Falcons fan, and we are getting his takes. Let's do.
Falcons were accused of tampering. Negotiations were alleged to have started before the free agency negotiating was allowed. Kirk reported that he spoke with both head athletic trainer and head of team personnel before they started the window of negotiation. Eagles were also accused of tampering this year. Penn State coach James Franklin claims Howie Roseman sold Saquon to leave the Giants for him. Howie claims he only spoke with Saquon's agent and not Saquon himself. The punishments are expected to be announced very soon, which is why we want to bring this up. Experts and fans predict the Falcons may lose a first or a second, and the Eagles will most likely lose a third. So, what does this all mean for you guys, especially the Falcons, Casey?
Well, I guess the first thing is that I don't really expect them to lose a first round pick. A lot of the reporting on that is coming from Mike Florio, who is more than biased and has like rumored that before. I know he said years ago that the Titans were like looking at a multi-million-dollar fine and a couple of draft pick loss for some practice violations during the COVID season. That never happened. So that would be my first thing. I would expect them to see a second rounder and for sure a fine, if not something more severe like a second and a fifth. That seems to be more in line if you look at previous penalties in this area as well, looking back to the Chiefs. The Dolphins themselves were in a bit different situation. I know a lot of people compare them to that, but that was involving ownership specifically as an offering, also involved them talking to both Brady and Peyton during the like actual season as opposed to during the off season. So that's really just my thoughts on that.
I've been hearing some, rumblings where I could see it be a second, but coming from a Vikings fan, seeing Vikings talk, obviously you've seen some Bleacher Report articles. There's talks that the Vikings could actually receive the pick from the Falcons, which is looking more likely. The Vikings did file a claim with the league when this is all going down, so the Vikings will more than likely be entitled to some compensation. They're saying that that's part of the reason they gave up so much draft capital to get Dallas Turner and JJ McCarthy is because they knew they would be getting the Falcons picks. Obviously, I've heard rumblings that they're going to make an example out of the Falcons because it was. I mean, there's no case to it. Kirk admitted in his press conference about it.
My other thought on this too is the one thing to keep in mind is that a lot of all of the tampering has been focused on the Vikings rather than Kirk, but Kirk had been tampering with everybody. It is known that like he met with John Elway 2 weeks before the whole legal tampering period officially kicked off. So that is one thing to keep in mind. I do kind of expect the Vikings to get some compensation for it. I don't know if it would be the second round pick if that is the fine outright, but I would expect them to get somewhere around the fourth, if not the third.
So I do like that you brought up the Vikings tampering and Broncos tampering right there, Casey. That does actually bring me to another question I have. So I understand it's a hefty cost for a move that you could argue almost every team does. Do you think that this is kind of like related to maybe the paying college athletes situation? Like maybe in a few years from now, we'll look at this and think this is stupid, kind of like putting the death penalty on a college.
I personally do think we will look at it like that. I know my personal opinion is already there, and that's what happened before the Kirk Cousins thing, just because, once again, the legal tampering argument falls flat on its face when you realize the NFL is just who knows each other and everybody knows each other.
Hmm.
So, of course, you're talking to your personal trainer who knows the athletic trainer at the Chargers facility, and through there you're able to kind of gauge interest in whether or not you guys would actually be a fit in free agency well before you can legally talk to each other. I would like to see that tampering period adjusted to where it begins somewhere around after the Super Bowl, but where exactly I'm not sure.
Whenever the tampering period begins, there's always going to be someone trying to get the upper edge by going early. That's where do they draw the line is the real question.
Exactly. It feels like it's one of those infractions that you can't really punish because you're always going to incentivize pushing that line.
See, I can actually really get behind the Super Bowl window that you brought up, Casey. I think about it like a real life job. You go into a job, and if you're not done with your work yet, these are contract contractually obligated workers, and before their contract is over, or trying to renew for a contract, they're already trying to make their way out of there. So, I mean, if the season's over, I think it's honestly fair game. Do you think the punishment should be the same for the Eagles as it is for the Falcons?
The key difference obviously is Kirk going up onto the podium and admitting it, which yeah is just something that the NFL looks down upon. If you were being quote unquote fair in the situation, I think you would see the exact same punishment for it. But the NFL is going to punish Kirk and the Falcons more heavily than the Eagles, specifically because Kirk came out and said it.
Kirk's supposed to be the franchise quarterback. It's an awful bad look when your quarterback's breaking rules. I mean, he's obviously there's no malice intent behind any of it, but it's a rule's a rule, and I thought Kirk would be following rules pretty well, but he's that. Let's just see what happens. I'm excited to see the penalties they get and bring on the picks for the Vikes.
Fair
Right.
enough.
So let's talk about the big reason we want to do a video, and that is Jetta's contract. Uh, Justin Jefferson signs a historic deal today, but give it a couple years and we'll be done talking about it. Today we aren't, though. Here's the breakdown: $140 million over 4 years, $88 million due at signing, and $110 million guaranteed. And I love this deal for the Vikings. Do not be deceived. This is a team-friendly deal. They are projected to have a lot of space next year. They inked him through 2029. If released in 2027, which I doubt will happen, but we're going ifs here, the Vikings only take $15 million in dead money. 3 years left, and you take a cap hit of only $15 million. If they go downhill, they will be able to get away from J.J. McCarthy, and the ability to trade Jefferson at worst will set them up for a rebuild in 2028. Josh, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's the I love it. Absolutely love the Vikings offseason. This was, the cherry on top. They signed Justin Jefferson, arguably on pace to be the greatest receiver to ever live. Um, to the greatest contract in NFL history for a non-quarterback offense and defense, topping Nick Bosa's 34 million average annual salary. I love it. Minnesota, you see he's not like signing. He's not holding out. He's not causing any drama. He's literally showing up, supporting his teammates, with supporting J.J. McCarthy after he was drafted. He's a great locker room character, great player, elite. I absolutely love it. Could not be more excited to have Justin Jefferson grittying on the Packers' ass for years to come.
Except for that, 29-yard game, but fair enough.
Yeah, I love it. What's there really to say? Like 35 million. Like if you just think back in 2018, that was like high tier quarterback
It
salaries.
was.
Now wide receivers are getting it too. The league is changing. The money is getting more insane. It's not on baseball or basketball yet, but I don't think it's that far off. He's the
It's
best.
kind of
He's arguably the best wide receiver in the league, and he's had an historic 4 year run, and to have him locked up and like that's just what JJ McCarthy is going into a perfect situation, having that like he if he's the guy that Minnesota is going to be dangerous.
right.
Yeah.
And for sure, even then, like I said, it's the amount of cap this doesn't hurt them in the last 3 years really makes him like, at the worst, Jefferson is a wonderful trade asset and a terrible next 2 seasons for the Vikings. Which
Well, and
I
the
mean,
thing you also have to look at too with the cap situation in them is his biggest cap hit doesn't come in till 2026, 2027, and 2028. Like 2026's cap hit on them is going to be $39 million.
yeah. And
That's in
it is
2026. That's going
47,
to
I
be
understand, in 2028. But
yeah.
like I said, the
And
dead cap isn't bad, and that's the
once you
big
get to
takeaway from
that
it, making him
point,
easier to trade.
they only have a handful of players currently on the team right now who are signed for contract beyond 2026. And it's the obvious ones like Hawkinson. I don't know if Harrison Smith is, but Andrew Van Ginkel I think is as well. All of those players are right around $4 million. The highest tier of them is $22 million, and he's on the highest point of his contract currently.
Right.
So they're not in any terrible position, especially when you consider the fact that they're able to take shots on smaller rookie quarterbacks over the next couple of years with draft capital and
Yeah,
everything.
I'm saying even if their team sucks, this contract is super team friendly for them. Like
Yeah.
this is it's weird to say, but a guy getting paid $40 million a year for the next few years is a good contract.
Yep. And as far as it affects the rest of the league, you're gonna see the baseline salary for some of the higher tier wide receiver twos, wide receiver ones raise up. But
Yeah.
I was reading a piece from Jason Fitzgerald at Over the Cap, and he pointed out that obviously this is like Josh said, exactly in line with Nick Bosa's contract and his average annual salary. The way to look at it then is this isn't resetting the wide receiver market. This is paying a Larry Fitzgerald, a Megatron, a Revis Island, and Aaron Donald, paying them what they're worth, which is top 5 player in the NFL money.
No, well said, Casey. Well said. Like, it's let's see, like those wider. Christian Kirk's to blame. Christian Kirk got the first contract that was like, whoa, like they paid him how much, and
Not
I'm
too
excited to
stupid.
see. Yeah, I'm excited to see what CD Lamb comes in at. He's probably going to get the bank too. Who knows what they're doing? But I do have an interesting quote here that I would like to read um, from Justin Jefferson, and this just gets me super excited. Justin Jefferson said, "It's not an easy job to come in out here and perform at the highest ability, especially as a rookie," Jefferson said about McCarthy. "But I definitely will be the main person that he can lean on and help throughout the way." He's basically taken JJ McCarthy under his wing and like, "Hey, we're going to do this. Like you have me and just I'm going to help you get there to become a quarterback that, a starter in the league." And
I think that's actually like a deeper level, honestly. I think that's less of a mentor and more of like I am super willing to be a friend to you at any time, even though I haven't met you yet, but we're gonna get along if we can,
Oh,
no
they've
matter what.
met. They've
Like
met now. Their
still
OTAs are
cool.
in
Like
full force and then mini camp. But yeah, no,
you can be
he's
that chill with
he's
someone.
the Vikings basically said we're building around Jetta, and he's like becoming the leader that Minnesota needs. He's becoming that leader that is going to help the development of JJ McCarthy, and that he's really the person that we need to hit to become a Super Bowl contender, and
Yeah.
we're built for success.
One thing with the Packers today, we got one quick thing with them. So Watson missed a significant amount of time last year, and he spent actual money and time going to the University of Wisconsin to find a solution for his lingering hamstring. So he did some testing, and it turned out that his legs were not symmetrical. His left leg had 20% more strength than his other one. His legs are now within 10%, and Watson's goal is to get in with 6 or closer. So this is actually a much bigger deal than what you guys would think. Apparently, it's getting traction. This has actually been news for a couple of weeks now. There are other people trying to get behind this now because hamstrings are one of the most common injuries in the NFL. So these people are trying to find new ways to improve their performance. And I think this is awesome because if this turns out to be right, I could, for one, see a full 17 game season with Christian Watson, which would be freaking awesome because I think he's electric as hell. And just other athletes, there'll be so many less games where, Christian McCaffrey has hamstring injuries. There's going to be less games where he's sitting out. You're going to have your main player in more often if this is successful.
Yeah. Why wasn't this done sooner? not
Right?
not for Christian Watson, but yeah, just for the NFL as a whole, or for sports as a whole. I mean, I would expect it to be more common in like basketball or soccer or anything where you do have a lot of quick lateral movement all of the time rather than in those short
Mhm.
bursts like you do in football and everything. I'd be curious to know if that was common over there. Either way, like, as someone who, as you both know, is not athletic in the slightest, I would have figured that would have been more common before this. So I'm very shocked at it, I guess.
So I guess my thing is I would say that my left leg would probably actually be stronger than my right, kind of like Watson's. When you jump, you typically jump off one leg. So I think it's kind of like a thing where how your right arm is naturally stronger, because you use it more.
Yeah,
So with the left leg, that's kind of how that happened. But this is apparently like newer science as well. I brought this up to my chiropractor and he goes, that sounds stupid. Like that, he's like, I don't think that's true. And I'm like, no, apparently it is.
that I
So
that's weird.
like
I don't know why
even
you
yeah,
wouldn't
even
believe
doctors
that.
like yeah, I think they haven't heard of it before. So like when I think a guy that whose job is literally to take care of other people's body doesn't know that. Like he's smart as a whip too. I mean, I'm not gonna take any credit
Yeah.
away from my chiropractor, but it's crazy that he didn't know about that.
Well, like if you think about it just from a simple physics perspective, like yeah, it makes sense. If I have two cables and they're both like holding up the same
Right.
load, but one's holding more of it up than the other, that one's gonna wear more over time, especially if
I,
I'm bending and cutting and everything.
oh yeah, it feels obvious, but it's just it's I think Josh and I could probably relate playing Rocket League. We always hit the ball in the corner because what we used to do when we first started is hit it down the middle. Well, then people learned to block in the middle. People got better. So you had to start aiming for the corners. And then, you sit there in the corners the whole time. Well, people aren't guarding the goal. And one day someone goes to me, ever try aiming for the goal? And I started making more points. Like, duh, aim for the goal. It's just sometimes
Don't
the
worry.
obvious option isn't there because you just think it is what it is.
Yeah, don't worry about the setup, just worry about the outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they need to get those nagging hamstring injuries because it's not unless like it's a rupture. It's not a terribly serious injury. It's just something that nags and nags on, and
Right.
stops them from. Like I said, Jefferson missed a lot of games this year because it just kind of kept tweaking it, and it was just like, come on, like a damn hamstring. Let's find it. Like they can work on getting knees better, and that's a whole nother discussion. The whole turf for like the real turf, fake turf stuff that's going on in the league right now. Players want real, and the league is unwilling to, spend the money that it takes to get that kind of grass in the
And
stadiums, and
they can't
it's
even claim it's a money issue either because you can't tell me those players wouldn't be like, I will pay a 100 or $10,000 do if we can pay that man to mow a yard. Like, those guys would do that.
Well, my
yeah,
first my
it's
my two thoughts on it too are like, first of all, as a Falcons fan, I really wish they would have figured this out about, you know, 12 years ago, because I wonder how long Julio Jones would have played beyond his current career arc and actually been good if it wasn't for all those nagging hamstring injuries.
Right.
But yeah, as far as the turf versus grass debate, like I agree. I think it's dumb that the NFL's not doing it. I mean, even for the Atlanta Falcons Mercedes-Benz Stadium and everything, it's hosting a World Cup match, and the qualifier for that has to be on natural grass. So they're implementing it for the World Cup and everything, but then they're going to rip it out because they don't want to deal with the maintenance of it. So they're
It
willing to
feels
pay
like
for it,
more
they're just not willing
work.
to maintain it.
it's always
It's so
about the bottom
dumb.
line. It's always about the bottom line for those
Uh,
owners, and it's cheaper to have artificial than it is to have
Yeah,
a have it all wheeled in for every game and do like you know I
growing
guess
underground and stuff.
it would save a lot of players' knees. Like it's a lot of players' knees in that year long ACL MCL tear. Like I would really really like to see less of that because it always happens early on in the season as people go down left and right with ACL tears, and it's like, oh, there goes his year. So let's try to reduce that too. Along like they're always focused on concussions. Well, let's worry about the knees too.
yeah.
I personally think we should return to tradition, and every NFL football game should be played in a high school baseball field's outfield.
That would
Yes.
be awesome. But I was gonna say, I think I got the words to kind of sum up the hamstring thing. It's not a career-ending injury; it's a career-altering injury.
There you go.
So that is the issue. And just like concussions were the same thing, they weren't a career-ending injury, but you don't want to get too many of those, obviously. But they are, so that's why they become a career-altering injury. One more thing I want to talk about the Vikings today: their winter warrior jerseys. What actually? I'm gonna just give out my thoughts right now. The helmets are top tier. I love the helmets. But what are everyone else's thoughts?
Josh, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I probably should. You're kind of in the minority on this, Casey.
Might be.
I've talked to a lot of people today, and at work, everywhere, and they were just like, those uniforms are fire. People are saying they're the best alternative uniforms in the league immediately, and I can't disagree.
Midwesterners are not known for style, I will say that.
They they are.
There is a big thing on there I do want to mention that I don't like about them before Casey, but I do want to hear what you have to say that's great about them because it might change my mind.
I
Yeah.
just, the helmets are obviously top notch. I will agree with that, Parker. That it's just like just the get up looks so crisp. And if I know it's gonna be like a winter, like a December game, they're gonna use them in a winter, like a winter whiteout kind of theme thing. But wouldn't you just like in like a winter December game at Lambeau, snow-filled game? Would you not love to see the Vikings pull those out and just like it would be so sick? And like we're getting like I honestly I seen a comment today on a Bleacher Report forum, and they were talking about the Vikings may like they're purple and gold. They believe in 10 years the Vikings may go from purple and gold to purple and silver, and I'm kind of there for it. I think we need to up our uniform game, and we're definitely on the right track.
Okay, so the purple silver idea is pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie. I actually would totally go for that. Like,
I heavy disagree on it. I think it's
but
just a push for modernity's sake, whereas the purple and yellow is classic. That's timeless. Every Vikings fan in the history can look at that current Vikings logo on screen and know exactly what team it is.
the one that hasn't won a Super Bowl in 60 years, exactly.
Right.
Anyway,
My
so I
my
think
other
they
point
don't. I think
is
they want to get
Eat
over
a
that, Casey.
dick.
I
I think they
also
want to get over that because I
yeah
would want to get over that.
I also really liked you saying, Josh, like how cool would it be if the Vikings pulled those uniforms out in the snow game, but in order
When
for
they're
that
in.
snow game to happen, they have to go to Lambeau to do it.
Dude, like or even Pittsburgh, or play some team that has like just a snow game in the middle of winter. Like
Just not
it would be
Minneapolis.
well, I mean, obviously we have U.S. Bank, so I mean we're not gonna have.
They
I
should
mean,
go there.
I sometimes wish we weren't a dome team, and I wish we had that actual home field advantage like Green Bay and those other teams get. I mean,
I did see a
we're arguably
comment on
colder
that.
than like Minnesota is more cold, like is colder than Green Bay and all those other states. Like
I
it's
would
this.
say so after spending the winter up here. But I did see a comment today that the Wilfs actually did want to build an open air stadium, but they just wouldn't get any public funding dollars if they did. So that's why they opted for the dome one. You
Oh,
can take your benefits and drawbacks for that however you will. I will say
concerts,
like
other events, things like that. Like
Yeah.
in
yeah,
Minnesota in the winter, you're not doing that, and they're building this high tech of a stadium. They're needing to. Then we hosted a Super Bowl. You wouldn't have hosted a Super Bowl in February in Minneapolis with an open roof dome. Like
Yeah.
it's
exactly.
about the bottom line, and I mean it's right. It's a beautiful stadium, and it's
The
you
Falcons
know.
are my favorite team, but living in Minneapolis, if the Vikings were to be playing outside at TCF all year, it would be very, very hard for me not to have the Vikings up there back again. But they have to be playing outside for me to come back to the family.
Ooh, so there's a chance.
Only if they're playing outside, which means it'll never happen.
Fair. So, here's my criticisms on the jerseys, Josh, that get me. It is like they got a stripe on the arm, and I don't know what it is, but it kind of has like the wrong 90s feel where it's supposed to look kind of super retro and futuristic at the same time. It's just not done well for me. and that's why it's a stripe and it's not like a deal breaker for me. But then there's like holes that are bigger than normal jerseys, and I actually just don't like that. So I kind of feel like they tried really hard in some aspects and not in others. That's what gets me on the whole thing is those few designs that just feel wrong or cheap.
I mean, I think the little stripe about on the shoulder there, like I think it's subtle, and I think it looks absolutely amazing. I think it's crisp. I mean, obviously, I've you know you, I everyone will have their own opinion on their style, but I think it's personally crisp, and I think it's one of the better jerseys I've seen in a while.
It's a very small detail from far away.
So I thank you for pointing all of this out, Parker, because I've finally been able to sum up my thoughts on it. But before I sum up my thoughts, my immediate thoughts that came to mind when I saw this image was brought to you by iPhone, Great Value K-State, Oregon circa 2014, and literally every college uniform that was a whiteout uniform post Oregon 2014. That being said, I do really like the purple numbers and the little
hmm
purple Vikings on the front of the helmet there. The logo is clean, but I don't know. It looks like it's a gloss logo, which is probably for the best. The silver ruins it though. Silver absolutely ruins it for me. It just doesn't differentiate them from anything else. It makes them look more like Kansas State. I don't know if they would have just gone with the straight purple line and white instead of the silver on the sleeves, if that would make it better or not for me. But yeah, the silver's got to go.
Casey, we're going to talk about the Falcons draft. So we spoke about the Falcons a few weeks ago, and I gave them a D for the year of 2024. And some quick reasons why. Drafting a 24-year-old QB at 8 when I would argue better talent was available. Trading up to take the second D tackle in the draft. Rook was considered a number 8 D tackle in most consensuses. Uh, Finally, not taking a wide receiver until the 6th round in a sack class. However, I see the vision of Braylon Trice in the 3rd and Brandon Delores in the 4th. Delores could be playing edge, and the Falcons may have sneakily made a very impressive front 7. I will say, though, I think only maybe one of these 4 guys will hit. With the exception of Trice and his short arms, these guys are all pretty raw. It's why I'm not convinced it was a great draft for them. If I was convinced 2 of them would hit, I would argue a C plus for maybe the draft. And if all 3 of the defensive linemen do, I would. I don't know what I'd give it, but I could see the Falcons actually possibly contending for a Super Bowl with 3 amazing rookie pass rushers.
Oh, gas me up, Daddy.
So
Um,
Casey, what do you think of all that?
so I think that the D plus is probably fair. I personally gave them a range of a C to a B minus, but that C is also obviously taken with the fact that I am biased. That being said, like the whole reason why they didn't take a wide receiver until the 6th, 7th round is just because they need defensive players. This team achieved 40 sacks last year for the first time in 20 years, and losing Bud Dupree and David Onyemata, you lost a quarter of that production right off the bat. You're hoping that having Nate Anderson come back from injury and be the middle linebacker that he was previously will free up guys like Nate Landman, who are much better off blitzing than they are in coverage. Same thing with Caden Ellis as well. From getting away from covering those TJ Hawkinsons and watching them score 2 TDs for 146 yards on your ass every weekend to getting back to doing what they're doing in blitzing. Hoping that with that, they're able to recoup some of those 13 sacks that they're walking away from.
Mhm.
Yeah, they did take a big swing on Ororo, but the thing with the drafts is if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, yeah, you're probably losing your job already. So you might as well take those big swings. Especially given that they've been prone to doing that previously. I'm very much okay with them just continuing to pump money into this defense. You can you can cover up for a lot of mistakes with just a lot of youth and talent on the defensive line and just getting nothing but pressures off of that. So, especially since they didn't take up another corner this year to play opposite AJ, that kind of seems the direction they're going.
Okay. So I can kind of get behind the Rook thing because I'm very sympathetic to players like him, like Rashawn Gary, very good athletes, very raw talent. Uh, so I mean, I would like to see him succeed, honestly.
It's a big
I
bet on coaching, and
Yeah.
personally, especially their new DC, I'm not the biggest fan of him from a coaching perspective, and especially from a coaching talent perspective.
So I do really like Braylon Trice. I think that he might be the third or fourth quickest edge rusher off the ball from what I've seen on all the film. He is off real quick. Like they said, they have short arms. And then I watched Dolores, and he played outside, he played inside, and he gave Washington some trouble. Like, he's not bad. He could very well be a good fit too. I mean, it's just I got to go a little off the consensus too, and can't go completely off gut because there's maybe something I'm missing. But all in all, I just think there were some better players available in those situations. But like you said, swinging for defense.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to argue with any of your guys' takes here, but Casey, come on now. We want to hear the hot scoop on Michael Penix. I've been waiting for you to mention his name once. He hasn't yet. Let's hear it.
Well, I
What's the
suppose it's
take?
about time to start pumping some Penixes up. So I don't hate the. I really don't. He is an extremely talented quarterback. He is very smart, and he can contribute to an offense right away if you need him to. You have to take into context who the Atlanta Falcons are as a team, aside from perennial chokers and the bane of my existence and a couple of other things that my girlfriend has heard me say about them that I probably shouldn't repeat here.
Hey,
It's been since 2020 since we've had a good quarterback. I love Matt Ryan to death, but his corpse couldn't get it done, Like Kyle Pitts, everyone talks about him being a disappointment. With the corpse of Matt Ryan and a duck arm, he put up almost 1,400 receiving yards in his rookie year. And then after that, you're looking at Heineke, Mariota, Ritter, Logan Woodside was in there for a couple of games, if I recall. Felipe Franks got a couple of snaps where he threw some interceptions right off the bat. Josh Rosen was there for a hot minute. This team needs quarterbacks. We're scared of not having one anymore. It is staring into the abyss. The abyss is consuming us.
see, I kind of agree with that too because with the Kyle Pitts situation, I hear a lot of him and Drake London. Why aren't they doing better? And it's like they can't. They really can't.
The past
The way
three
they've been
QBs,
coached as
exactly. The
well
past
last year
three
was
QBs they've had
terrible.
start can't hit crossers. They finally have a QB who can hit crossers. They actually got two of them on the roster now. I'm pretty okay with that situation, actually.
Do so with that, do you think that the reason they took Michael Penix is because they're worried that they could lose their first round pick?
I think it was part of the equation. I think the larger part of the equation was that they most likely knew if they didn't take him there, he was going to the Raiders, and there's no way that they could work a trade back up above the Raiders. It's not something I've been looking into on reporting or anything, mostly just because personally I haven't cared all that much for it. At the end of the day, if Michael Penix is good, Michael Penix is good, baby. I'm not going to be mad about how we got him. I'd be
Right.
very curious to know, not out of all first round quarterbacks, because obviously that number is heavily skewed towards failure, but out of QBs who make their second contract and play out that second contract as a starter, how many of those QBs play beyond 10 years as a starter level player, anyways?
Right.
Hopefully,
Especially
too.
taking in, hopefully more than a few now. Especially taking into account the fact that it's not exactly uncommon to watch a QB play extremely well and at Super Bowl MVP caliber level into their late 30s, early 40s now.
I think they really just love the guy. I think They just kind of sneakily like, oh, we love this guy. He's our quarterback. Maybe we shouldn't assign Kirk to all that money.
Well,
Yeah,
I guess my thing on that is, like you said, you think you shouldn't assign Kirk to all that money, but
it's
as
not that
Casey
much
mentioned,
money.
it's so a lot of it the Vikings are still on the hook for, if I understand that correctly, and
The first year the Vikings are on the hook for, yeah.
yeah, and then my other understanding is okay, so everyone goes, oh, you paid this quarterback with an ACL injury all this money. Well, okay, what are you going to do about it? Well, you draft Michael Penix. I guess that kind of makes sense when you point it out like that. Now you have, I mean, I'll bring it up to a D plus, honestly. I mean,
Yeah,
officially
you
here, I'll bring it up to a D plus, and I would, if you press me hard enough, I'd say C minus. But I mean,
would you guys say that the Atlanta Falcons have the best quarterback room in the league right now, just on pure talent alone?
No.
Who would you say is better?
Sean Clifford, baby, 100 QBR, only quarterback ever. Green Bay Packers, fucking debate me.
Ooh, that's a tough debate.
One pass, 37 yards, baby. 100 QBR. That's what it equals.
Who would you say has got a better starter backup combo specifically than the Falcons?
Probably the Steelers.
Ooh, would you really put Fields over Michael Penix?
Would you put
Because
Fields and
you
Wilson
don't.
over Michael Penix? Fields and
I
today
wouldn't take
Russell
either of them
Wilson.
over Kirk, to be honest with you. That's the
Yeah,
first thing. So they have to be better than Fields.
See,
Fields has to be better than
I'm
both of
just
them,
saying
or one
that,
of them.
like, just as a rating, you got Kirk and Penix. Penix is unproven, but with Fields and Wilson, you have two mid to low end number ones, I believe. I believe they still can be number ones in the league. And just the uncertainty. I think it's just a better situation because you know that if one goes down, you're getting still a starter caliber that can win in the league. And I think it's just a little better of a situation, not much.
yeah, that's fair. I guess my only pushback on there is like, what would you define as starting caliber versus what do you want your starting caliber quarterback to be?
I
Um,
mean,
yeah, but that's something that we could be here debating all day regardless.
I
to
think
me, to me, I liked Fields a little more as a prospect coming out of college than Penix, but I still would like to see Fields to get a shot with a
I
different
loved
team other than the
Fields,
Bears.
and
I
to
did
some degree,
too.
I still love Fields. But like, I remember telling my aunt this, who's a Bears fan, when they drafted him, because she said I told her that the Bears are gonna suck next year, and she said, "But we got Fields," and I said, "I don't care. They're gonna ruin that man." And yeah, here we are today.
Preach.
Um,
well, they literally had their coach basically go, all right, so I don't know what to do for an offense, so we're just gonna run with Fields a lot. I
yeah,
mean, he pretty much had not like bluntly admitted it, but it sounds like that's kind of what he did.
the 2004 Madden, I'm playing with the Falcons Michael Vick strategy of I don't need to throw this ball. I'm just going to run every play with Michael Vick.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but
So
with the Penix thing and everything, yeah, it's probably a bit of a reach and all of that, but I think that the main thing to look at there is with Kirk specifically, if unless he's got two MVPs under his belt, he's probably going to be a post June 1st cut in 2026. I don't have the numbers up in front of me right now, but they pretty much get out of that contract for
Two
next to nothing.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
2 years, and you can reasonably get out of it. It's not going to be a situation like Denver is with the Russell Wilson contract, where they're paying like 100 million on cap space just to like it's a ridiculous number. And yeah,
Yeah.
no, he'll probably be cut or traded after 2 years. I mean, if he gets hurt and Penix performs well, Kirk could be
Despite
traded next year. You know,
Exactly. Despite what the common consensus has been coming out of the media, and especially not helped by like Kirk and his agent saying that they were blindsided, both parties knew that this contract was very front loaded, was more than fair to both parties, and specifically gave the Falcons an out after 2 years. Like that was never in question.
no, you're absolutely right. I'm very glad Minnesota didn't pay it, and let's roll. I'm excited to see in a couple of years, Casey, when you and I can actually discuss this quarterback draft class because our teams had have skin in the game to see who turned out better, Penix or McCarthy, because you guys could have had McCarthy if you wanted, and hopefully, you guys. I mean, I hope you guys, regret that decision.
I'm very confident in Michael Penix, if for nothing other than the fact that he drug the University of Indiana to like positive seasons. And if you guys know nothing about the University of Indiana, that's like dragging the Lions to the playoffs.
So he's as
So,
good as Jared Goff.
He might just be Jared Goff, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully a bit better.
He does have a pretty deep ball. His deep ball is absolutely gorgeous. Let's see
After watching Kyle Pitts just have ball after ball after ball over the past 2.5 years, just throwing 10 yards above his head whenever he's more than 15 yards downfield, I'm excited for it. I think he will continue the absolutely fantastic tradition of an Atlanta Falcons pass catcher going for 1,400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and no more.
We're going to war.
We're going to war.
Let's talk about Josh's bachelor party. We're going to war.
All right, let's do it. Bachelor party. It was a fun time. All you two sexy boys were there, and it was a great time. Sorry, I was sick. I just wanted to talk about Matt Manley's shirt and how it saved a life. Parker, go ahead with that story.
So we went to the grocery store to get beer. As we walked out of the grocery store, a lady said, "Oh, hey, you helped me remember to take my pills." And we're like, "Oh, cool." And she goes, "Yeah, they're blood pressure medication." We're like, "Oh, okay." So, our guy wearing a Hawaiian shirt with a bunch of pills on him ended up saving an old lady's life.
Matt's shirt saved a life.
The best part is Matt is a literal first responder, so
Yeah.
even better.
Still saved a life.
The best response is not responding at all sometimes, and getting there before.
Yeah, no, it was a great time. Also, the champion of the Beer Olympics, yours truly, closed it out in beer darts. That was pretty fun.
We can't forget the legend of the other Matt Clutchman.
Oh, Matt Clutchman. Oh,
Matt
my
Clutchman,
goodness.
just coming in clutch every single game. Last shot in beer pong to get him in the next round. Last throw in Beersby. I mean, every single thing. His last one, he made it count. Truly Matt Clutchman.
Maybe biased in there, but I don't think that Beersby throw was that great. Just, from a different perspective, the one behind the
other.
Shouldn't have lost.
I tried my best, but my teammate let me down.
Yeah, you guys, Casey was everyone's beer bitch, and that was courtesy for the last place individual of the tournament. But he had
everybody forgot about it.
They did. They did very quickly.
They
Even I did, and I
was
constantly
so
reminded everyone that was your job.
I had beers in my pocket. I was ready to go. I had my shoes tied to sprint, but no, just no one dared.
They were too invested into the games. We
That's
played
fair.
more announcer than anything.
That's fair. The announcing was very fun. I did enjoy that.
It was.
You guys. It was a great announcing. The way we hyped everyone up, and I mean, the Matt Clutchman call, legendary.
Our terrible rap battle.
As Barney Stinson would say, legend.
Wait
for it.
I would say thank you for reminding me, but I never wanted to remember it.
Wait, rap battle.
We had a rap battle in Casey goes, "Okay, I'm not saying you're good, but you definitely won."
Yeah, that was sad.
I also would like to give a shout out to my Uncle Steve.
Uncle Steve.
Uncle Steve,
you
better be listening.
Yeah, you better tell me that you heard this part in our podcast if you truly love me.
Uncle Steve will read out a series of numbers, and if you don't repeat those numbers to me, I will come to your house. And
I know where it is. I can show you.
I was stealing,
If he doesn't do it, next time we're gonna give him 8 sweaty guy hugs instead of 7.
Yes. Oh yeah, we all gave my Uncle Steve shirtless, sweaty guy hugs.
That was his reward for
That
winning
was
the
his
fantasy
reward for
football
winning fantasy
championship.
football, baby. Hell yeah.
Yeah, what's the numbers, Casey? You got to put the numbers
What do you mean the numbers? Like a
that,
score?
that Uncle Steve's supposed to read.
Oh yeah. All right. 1,792,327 89 462.
Perfect.
I'm only reading them once, Steve. You better have gotten that.
Well, I guess you're just going to have to listen to that over and over again because that was kind of actually hard to keep track of.
Damn right it was.
Because of the first number mostly.
Right? How many digits is that number? Was it 1.3 something million, or was there like a full extra 100 after those? Nobody knows.
I guess Uncle Steve will just have to tell you.
The numbers, Mason, what do they mean?
What are the rules? We're going to war.
We're going to war.
We're going to
We're
war.
going to war.
I'm really only a fan of two sports teams when I think about it: the Timberwolves and the Falcons, both of which have a real penchant for just kicking me down, though. You know.
I mean, it was still nice seeing the T-Wolves actually do something. Like
It was first
it,
time
it,
since
it was
Abe.
being actually talked about was like talked about in the Western Conference Finals since 2004. Like I mean, there were goodness, like there was so many bad years. Like just bust after bust we would draft, and then we'd get someone good, and then we'd trade them. Like shit, having Cat for 10 years is honestly like just a goal in his own. Like keeping a star
Young
like.
players, stable, yeah.
And
I
now
needed
Ant
Jimmy
Edwards.
Butler
Hopefully,
here.
we can keep Ant. Like for his whole career and not trade him to the Lakers or something. And get like it. Like we need to like keep this momentum going. I don't know if you saw we are getting our president of basketball operations back, and Tim Connolly. That's exciting.
Yeah, my biggest hope is that, especially now that they brought Michael Bloomberg in under the ownership group, that they'll get the sale done to A-Rod and Mark Lore, because if they're not the owners, then Tim Connolly is walking next year for sure. He has made that very
He
clear in
doesn't
his
like
actions.
Glenn, and
Yeah, I can't
yeah,
blame him.
Glenn's kind of Glenn didn't even want him, and now and A-Rod like his relationship with Mark Lore basically is what got him there, and we need to keep that man. He is honestly maybe the best president and GM in the league.
Yeah. It's been some pretty incredible energy and stuff this season, like in moving up to Minneapolis and everything, and going to all of the games and just talking to the people you're sitting next to and hearing their stories and how they're like Timberwolves fans and stuff. And the one thing that's always been common thread to me has been, I've watched so many games, I've been so miserable, but oh my God, Anthony Edwards, this team is a blessing. We've earned this, we've deserved this, we've needed this. Even people who have just been recent Bulls fans and everything, they feel it too. And I'm hoping that energy can stay pure and doesn't turn it into something where we're demanding them to be competing for the finals and are sad when they're not there every year. But we'll see.
So, just a random question for you guys. Bronny James. Is someone going to waste a draft pick on him?
100%.
Yep, 100. He's going to be a first round pick, no doubt, because
Draft picks in the NBA are wasted all the time. You just whatever.
How
Throw a
low do you
second
think
round.
he's
You
going?
throw a late first, early second at them, late second. See if you can't get LeBron to come play for you for a year.
I honestly would, if I had the number one overall pick this year and then I had it in the second round too, I would probably take whoever I guess what I understand is the first overall pick isn't really anything worth writing home about this year.
this is one of the
No,
worst draft classes. Like I'm not even. We shouldn't even really
it's pretty
talk about it because it's one of the worst in history. Like
Yeah,
there's like the top 7 picks are like late
'cause
lottery picks in most drafts.
all of the guys that would have been the top 7 picks went to the G League Ignite and are still in the G League now because they started playing for the G League in high school and haven't really developed or anything.
Yeah. Very
So
2013-esque draft, huh?
Yeah, I've not looked much into it, but like I don't think that there's
It's
a real
bad.
need to. You can
Yeah.
as someone who has followed the NBA on and off for a while, you can usually tell when a good draft is because there's always, like the Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball draft, there's like actual debate about the number one pick and like, oh yeah, this could be a legitimate franchise cornerstone instead of just gassing
Dude,
up 5 different dudes for the hell of it.
Bronny James could legit be the number one overall pick just so that they get LeBron.
He probably won't be
Would you
that
rather
high,
take
but
would you rather take let me ask you this, would you rather take a 10th overall pick in an average draft class or 1 year of LeBron James?
I think that the question instead should be how much are you willing to pay in draft capital for a extremely solid role player for his entire NBA career
in Bronny James,
in Bronny James. He's talked about it. He knows that he's not a star player. He's talked about how he wants to model his game more after like guys like Fred VanVleet. You do one job and you do that job extremely fucking well.
That's fair.
So like how much would you be willing to pay for that? And I think that
Definitely
answer
depends on the
depends on the
role too.
draft, honestly.
And the
he's a
role, I would say.
he's a good defensive player. He measured in like 6'1" without shoes, which is pretty damn small.
Yeah.
He averaged like 4 points a game. Like on paper, he's honestly undraftable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of what
Well,
I
and
thought
he
too.
also has the medical issue too that you're concerned about and everything, but
He had cardiac arrest. That's pretty
yeah.
serious.
Oh,
His he's obviously being buoyed a bit by his name, but also just by the fact that this draft class is pretty weak too.
He'll go probably in the 20s, I'm assuming. He's only taking interviews with like certain teams. Like he's not willing. Like he's like basically determining where he's going to play through interviews. And don't be surprised when it's just the Lakers. Honestly,
I
God, it would be
sadly
the
think
most
you're right.
Lakers thing to do.
Right. They trade up too.
they'll trade D'Angelo Russell for the rights to draft Bronny James. Watch
Dude,
it.
they might.
Would you do
That's
that?
the wild thing.
Would you make that trade, regardless of what the pick you're making that trade for? Would you trade D'Lo for Bronny James?
No, but
I would.
Honestly, I think that I
I'm
I
so
don't know if
glad
I
he's not in
want
Minnesota.
LeBron
I
on the
love Mike
Lakers.
Conley.
Yeah.
I don't know if I guess my thing is like I honestly I would rather probably get rid of I guess I don't watch enough basketball to have a shoe in this, but I guess my thing is with how old LeBron is, I would almost rather have D'Lo at this point, but probably not this year, but this could be LeBron's last year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just for
No,
the future,
like,
taking LeBron out of the equation,
Yeah.
I would still rather have Bronny James. Like, unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the YouTube channel or video I watched, but they broke down kind of something Draymond Green had said. As unfortunate as I hate to mention Draymond Green, of there are 82 game players and there are 16 game players. An 82 game player is, like a DeMar DeRozan, fantastic in the regular season, but he ain't a 16 game player. He can't get it done in the playoffs. No offense to DeMar, because I know he's listening.
Right.
Long time listener, DeMar DeRozan. So I don't see D'Lo as that 16 game player. I see D'Lo as an 82 game player, if that. And Bronny obviously is neither of those, but that's where I think, given he knows he's not that, while D'Lo still thinks he's that, I would rather have Bronny because he knows what he can do to contribute to this team winning night in and night out, and won't get in his feelings about it.
That's all the time we have today. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Cheese and Bags Podcast. And be sure to have a great day.
thank you, Casey, for coming on.
Yeah,
Let's
thanks
go
for
to
having me,
war.
guys. It was a good time.
We're going to war.
Going to war.
Going to
Going to
war.
war. Going to war. Trying to find the record button. Going to war.